Good morning, everybody. I'm Rebecca Lee. I'm a real estate lawyer at Mintz and a longtime member of Boston Harbor Now's Advisory Board and Policy Planning Committee. And I am your host for this morning's forum. It's great to see some familiar faces on today's forum. But if this is your first time joining a Harbor Use Forum, I want to note that this is a monthly session that Boston Harbor Now hosts for members of the public to learn more about what's happening around the project, both programs and planning, projects and planning initiatives. Boston Harbor Now itself is a nonprofit organization focused on ensuring that the waterfront and the Harbor Islands are increasingly climate resilient and accessible and welcoming to everyone. Our work spans from commenting on harbor development projects to planning for future ferry service to bringing underserved communities out to experience the Boston Harbor Islands. Boston Harbor Now believes strongly that the waterfront belongs to all of us, and that by bringing together interactive conversations like that, the one we hope to have this morning, we can help ensure better, more thoughtful and dynamic projects and more inclusive planning initiatives. While we're still on Zoom for now, we continue to explore hybrid options for these forums as regulations and best practices during these trying times for convening change. We appreciate how many people have been able to participate in this virtual format. We've opted to use the Zoom meeting platform today so we can all see each other. You can choose to turn on your camera now or during the discussion, and everyone can see who's in attendance. In addition to introductions in the chat, we'd like to do a quick poll to learn who's here. So our first question is, what is your level of familiarity with the Neponset River Greenway extension? I helped design it. I've attended other meetings about the project. I've read about the project, or I'm learning about it today. So you have a poll that's come up on your screen. Just click your answer, hit submit, and I'll wait to get the responses. Let's see. So in equal measure, well, it's interesting. 31% of us know little or nothing about it. And some of us have heard a little about it, that's 20%. And then there is about half who know something about it significantly. So that gives us a sense of the range here. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Stella Lensing, who's a Trails and Greenway planner in the Division of Design and Engineering at the state's Department of Conservation and Recreation, which is our state's parks entity. Stella, let me just interrupt by welcoming Amanda from Councilor Frank Baker's office. He represents Dorchester, and also Gerald Otler, who is the head of the Trails program for DCR, formerly of the BPDA. Stella, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you, Rebecca, and good morning to everybody attending this discussion. I'm Stella Lensing. I am a regional planner and landscape architect in the Trails and Greenway section, and I focus mainly on major urban and signature greenways, and Neponset River Greenway is one of these. So let me begin by sharing my screen, and we can get going. Just going to do full screen mode. Can everybody see that? I'm assuming you can. Okay, so we're going to discuss the Neponset River Greenway design. And this is the presentation that we presented at a 75% design public hearing in May. This is a project that we are partnering with Mass DOT on. They are helping us with the funding for this project, and they are also helping us with providing some of the land that this greenway will be constructed on. Just to remind us that We're here on behalf of the governor, and also just wanted to shout out to our secretaries as well as our commissioners. The DCR mission statement: to protect, promote, and enhance our Commonwealth of natural, cultural, and recreational resources for the well-being of all. And of course, the MassDOT mission statement: to deliver excellent customer service to people traveling in the Commonwealth by providing transportation infrastructure which is safe, reliable, robust, and resilient. We work to provide a transportation system which can strengthen the state's economy and improve the quality of life for all. Okay, so let me begin by showing you the Neponset River Greenway. And we are focusing today on that section that is highlighted in the yellow square. Overall, we are our Greenway is about 10 miles long, and this little section will be the northernmost section that we will be designing, with hopes to continue design for future connections down to Castle Island. I'm sorry, up to Castle Island. Okay, so just to remind you, our project team, we're partnering with MassDOT and the Federal Highway Administration. Our design team is BC Group with CSS, Lynn Associates, and GZA. I'd like to discuss our agenda for today. I'm going to be presenting our project background and goals, site analysis, alternatives and project scope, project impacts, environmental permitting, the project schedule, and then there'll be some time for Q&A. As mentioned, or maybe I have not mentioned it, but this has been the master plan, or the planning of this Greenway has been a vision that has been discussed for a long time. More recently, in the mid-90s, the DCR embarked on a master plan for the Lower Neponset Reservation. And the goals of this master plan was to create, preserve, and enhance the interconnected system of parks, nature reserves, and scenic roadways, complete the DCR's vision from the 1990s for a 7-mile shared use path along the Neponset River, provide a safe recreational opportunities to users, and improve the vegetation and natural resources. The project goals for the Neponset, and specifically this project, is to provide a safe Greenway connection from Tenyon Beach to Morrissey Boulevard, create a new linear park with access to the waterfront, create pedestrian and bike connections to Victory Road Park and make improvements to the park, address climate resiliency, and improve the habitat value of the corridor. Again, since the mid to late 1990s, the Neponset River Greenway has been developed. We started with Pope John Paul Park opening in the late 1990s. We completed the Truman Parkway, the northern section, in 2010. The southern section of the Truman Parkway extension was completed in 2015. Another highlight was the Blue Hill Ave to Central Avenue connection, completed in 2017. And now we're hoping to construct our Tenyon Beach to Morrissey Boulevard section between 2022 and 2024. And just to show you where these sections are located, we're moving from south to north. Number 1 is the Truman Parkway southern section. Number 2 is the Truman Parkway northern section. Number 3 is our Blue Hill to Central Avenue section. And number 4 is our Pope John Paul II Park section. And all of this work represents about $25 million that DCR has already invested in the Neponset River Greenway. So let me begin with this specific project. Just to go back to this plan, you can see that the Greenway is oriented north to south. We have turned the plan around, and now north is on the left-hand side of your screen. This project consists of 4 pieces that fit together to be this linear corridor. We're breaking it into these 4 sections to communicate the design a little bit clearer. We have the Conley Street to Tenyon Street Beach section, which is about 500 linear feet. I'll just pointed out here. The Conley Street to Victory Road section along the I-93 embankment, 2,000 linear feet, Victory Road to Freeport Street, about 450 linear feet, and the Victory Road to Morrissey Boulevard section, another 1,700 feet. Just to take a step back, let's look at the existing conditions and some of our site constraints and opportunities. When you connect from the rest of the Greenway at Tenyon Beach, you come to this point along Conley Street where you can go no further. There's a very narrow sidewalk on Conley Street, and this makes getting to Boston quite difficult. So we're looking to improve this condition. This is the view of the looking north, west of the I-93 embankment, where we hope to, where our trail is proposed, where we will be improving the vegetation and in this corridor, as well as improving some of the other, providing some buffer to some of the neighboring businesses. Moving along north along the corridor, we have a current condition shown here as number 3, and photo number 3 is there's a DCR tide gate located around this area. At this time, the tide gate is not functioning correctly. Part of this project will be to reconstruct this tide gate so that we can prevent flooding during storm events or high tide events of Morrissey Boulevard and of this parking lot between Boston Bowl and the Ramada Inn. Photo number 4 shows the existing condition of the salt marsh area with the view towards Dorchester Bay, and you can see UMass Boston in the background. We're hoping to make some improvements here. This is where our boardwalk structure is proposed, and we want to remove debris and improve the vegetation in this area as much as we can. So also, just to explain some of the thinking of our proposed alignment, we had several alternatives before MassDOT came forward and said they could help us with providing this parcel of land. We had thought about taking this route along Freeport Street. The problem with this connection is that the roadway itself is very narrow. There are a lot of curb cuts, so it would be really difficult to meet some of the goals of our project. So, our preferred alternative, along the I-93 embankment on the western side, provides a safe greenway connection from Tenyon Beach to Morrissey Boulevard, creates a new linear park with access to the waterfront, creates a pedestrian and bike connections to Victory Road Park and make improvements to the park. It addresses climate resiliency and improves the habitat value of the corridor. So this plan shows you a number with a section line. So I'm going to be presenting some views, cross-section views of the proposed condition for the Greenway. And just to reiterate the project scope: shared use path with a boardwalk over Dorchester Bay, civil engineering and drainage improvements, planting and site furnishings along the project corridor, improved access to Victory Road Park, and improved wayfinding and signage. So let's look at the first section, elevation. This is the view of Conley Street, and this is looking west, so from Tenyon Beach. We are proposing to modify the roadway, increasing the sidewalk to 12 feet so that we can accommodate peds and bikes with a guardrail for separation. The whole roadway, curb to curb, will only be 26 feet. Right now, I think it's 27.5 feet, so we're not losing too much roadway. But what is happening is we are tightening the curve of this road. Then the next section, once we have turned and moved north along the western side of the embankment, this is a typical section of the Greenway. The next section, further north, shows you that we have a wider corridor, and this is adjacent to the 780 Morrissey Boulevard development site. Again, in this, the section shows how we plan to increase the vegetation buffer between the adjacent properties and to also enhance the habitat of the corridor. The final section that we're showing for this part of the Greenway is alongside the Mass DOT Snow and Ice Depot and Salt Shed. Again, we have a 30-foot wide corridor in this area. We propose plantings on either side of the trail to improve the buffer. So here we are at the Mass DOT Snow and Ice Depot and Salt Shed. 30 feet wide is our corridor, and again showing the trees and vegetation proposed on either side of the trail. The last section here, right before we hit Victory Road, showing the pull-off area and wayfinding that's proposed for trail users. The next section is the proposed alternative road 1 roadway section for crossing Victory Road or moving users from the intersection of Victory Road to the next section. And I just want to highlight that, I beg your pardon, I'm just gonna take another sip of water. We have done 2 alternatives for Victory Road, and the alternative 1 is the preferred alternative, but I'm going to show you both alternatives. Alternative 1, we are bringing users on the south side of Victory Road with a 14-foot wide Greenway corridor and a 6-foot wide sidewalk on the northern side of Victory Road. This is a plan view of the proposed alternative 1, and the red dots indicate the route that pedestrians and bicycle users will use. This is the existing condition at the I-93 off-ramp at Victory Road, and this is our proposed condition. We have included additional stop signs, roadway crossings, and some rapid flashing beacons that can be activated by pedestrians and bicycle users. Alternative 2 would provide the Greenway section on the northern side of Victory Road with a 12-foot wide Greenway path and an 8-foot wide sidewalk on the southern section. We would have directed users to the intersection of Freeport Street and Victory Road. The route is indicated by the red circles or dots. This is the existing condition, and this would have been the proposed condition. Just want to say, as mentioned, we are going with this alternative, crossing number 1, as this was the preferred alternative from a design public hearing, as well as the preferred safest route proposed by our design team. Next section is, as we are moving along on the section adjacent to the National Grid property. Again, I just want to say National Grid is also providing us with some land for us to build this trail on. This section will run along outside of their facility, so there'll definitely be a security fence up, and this is the security fence currently in place, and just wanted to let everybody know that there's going to be no possibility of pedestrians and users going into this property along the trail. And then our next section shows us the elevated boardwalk structure. This is the off-ramp right here. And this gives you a good idea of the grade change and elevation changes between the off-ramp and the elevated structure. This is another view of our proposed structure. This is, if you're driving down that off-ramp, this is potentially what you will see. This is a perspective view of our proposed structure, showing the materials and the main overlook, which is quite large enough for families to pull off from the trail and park their bikes and take a rest and take in the views. Project materials, we're going to continue to use the palette of trail materials, signage. We're going to use our signature iconic granite pillars that we have from Neponset. We're going to continue to use native species along the trail. Temporary construction impacts, the I-93 off-ramp to Morrissey Boulevard will be reduced in travel lane width for construction purposes, and we might have some short-term closures of Conley Street and Victory Road to accommodate some of this construction. Environmental permitting, we are through the MIPA and NEPA review. We have submitted our Chapter 91. We have our order of conditions from the Boston Conservation Commission. We are in the middle of our 401 water quality certification, and we've also submitted our PCN with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. As far as project schedule goes, we are going to be submitting 100% submission to DOT this Friday. And then with the bid date of summer 2022 and full construction to begin in 2022. So with that, I will open it up to questions and answers.
This is Rebecca Lee. Can you speak to the climate resiliency measures and the integration of the very substantial grade changes that are happening along the path and how those will help contribute to reduction in flooding events along Morrissey Boulevard and area neighborhoods?
Yeah, so with regards to so what's happening right now, the existing condition for the section between Conley Street and Victory Road, there's a section of trail that's actually only at 6-foot elevation. That's in the area in the vicinity of the tide gate structure. We'd like to increase the elevation to about 10-foot elevation in that area, because we realize that that is a low point for the path, but also you know, in elevating that section will give us more resiliency for our pathway, but also allows us to work with that tide gate. Right now, the issue is that the tide flap doesn't work. So during a high tide, water is backing up into the storm system and causing flooding. And then combine that with a storm event, you have double whammy. So we're hoping at least that when we fix the tide gate, we're going to prevent that high tide surge from backing up. And then hopefully that would alleviate issues of flooding during a storm event. We are not, I've got to say, we just to clarify, we do not expect that fixing the tide gate is going to alleviate some of the other flooding associated with large storm and rain events. Also along our trail, we are installing infiltration trenches. So we are capturing all the runoff from our trail in these infiltration trenches along the corridor. I hope that answers your question.
Hi, this is Martha. I put my question in the chat, but how will the trail be maintained in the winter so that it can be used as much as possible?
That's a really good question. I know that the rest of our trail gets, snow is removed from the rest of the Greenway so that we can have it open for users. And that's what we hope to do in this section as well, including for the boardwalk structure. We will be using special equipment to remove snow.
What is the MassDOT role in this project, and how does that relate to DCR's role?
So Mass DOT plays two important roles here. Number one, they are giving us part of the corridor for us to construct the trail, and then also we will have a care and control agreement with them that we will be taking care of the Greenway as the corridor. The other part is that they are helping us get federal funding for this project through their TIP program or STIP program, sorry. So we've been working really closely with them so that we could have this funding. So once, you know, this project gets bid, it's all a Mass DOT construction phase. So we're doing the design and they're going to construct it for us.
Thank you.
We have a couple more questions in the chat, Stella. Someone asks, what was the reason to build the path along the west side of 93 instead of the east side closer to the shoreline?
That's also another very good question. There were quite a few factors that went into that. Number one, we have the land available from DOT. It's at this time something that's a little bit easier to design and permit. And also it gets users, you know, to Boston safely. The reason why we didn't consider the trail on the eastern side across the water at this time was just that we wanted to, you know, get this project built, and we felt that, you know, if we went on the other side, we may have had needed a lot more time and may have missed the opportunity for funding to build the project. And I just want to note that just because we're building it on the west side of the embankment, it doesn't preclude future chances of building it on the other side.
Great. And I think we've seen that in other agencies' designs for this area. Christian Manil from Streets Blog asks, the waterfront here is very difficult to access from the surrounding neighborhoods, mostly because of I-93 and Morrissey. Is DCR thinking about crosswalk safety improvements at Connolly Street or Victory Road, I guess, to get over there, or Freeport Street?
Right, those are all very good questions and points, and I'm in complete agreement. Getting across Morrissey Boulevard to Victory Road Park or to Tenian Beach is really tricky. I think that this is something, I mean, I can't speak to this because I'm not the person who would be managing such a project, but I know that, you know, this is something that DCR has got, you know, is thinking about, are these connections. You know, we had to narrow our scope down and keep the project within a reasonable scope. Otherwise, if I had the chance, I would have wanted to expand that and improve those connections. But at this point, our scope is just focused on the trail itself.
Great. Looks like Martha has another question. Does the path at Joseph Finnegan Park connect to the Tenian Beach area?
Right now it does not, and we do not propose any of those connections. We have had very high-level discussions with the city of Boston with regards to having some sort of signage along the city of Boston streets. We do have a signage proposed for at Joseph Finnegan Park to point you in the direction of Tenyon Beach and the Greenway. And similarly in this project, we will have signage pointing back to Joseph Finnegan Park. But unfortunately from Tenyon Beach to Joseph Finnegan Park, you will have to navigate a city street.
Great, thanks for clarifying. I've got two things here. One, Evan says, can you show the preferred option slide at Victory again? The
Yes.
plan for what is going to happen. And then Jack, I'm gonna let you unmute yourself, or if you can unmute, and maybe you can describe where else at National Grid you imagined that project happening.
Morning, everyone. Hi, Stella. Hey, Stella, I do recall that the original design, we had conversations with National Grid about rights of access across their property as part of a Article 97 issue some years ago. And in exchange for that agreement, they were going to allow some rights across their property. I think you've already addressed it, but are you aware of conversations continuing with Grid about access around the tanks? And I know there's always been an issue of security, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we are in the process of negotiating this lease with them for access. So I just want to be clear. Let me just go back a slide. This section here is being negotiated with National Grid as a lease on their property for this project. So we're not off their property at all. They are gonna, this is exactly what you were talking about, Jack.
Right, thanks. And I do just want to say, it's just sort of an editorial comment about this particular project. You know, it's cliche to bash government, but this is one of the things that really demonstrates how good things can happen when people and agencies work together toward a common goal. Much of this property was purchased back in the 80s during the Dukakis administration. Further land acquisition happened into the Weld administration, and then you saw some of the planning in earnest around the master plan really happening during the Weld-Cellucci administration. Of course, DCR was created, and during the Romney administration, that planning continued. And then as part of the Patrick administration, we started picking off, pieces of this with the Neponset Trail Phase 1, Phase 2 being started and completed, Phase 3 for groundbreaking along the river, and in Finnegan Park. And now it's great to see this work continuing into the Baker-Polito administration. So Stella, I applaud your continued resilience. I know that you and your team have been at this for a long time, but for any of you who have had the opportunity to be out on this trail, it is absolutely magnificent, from Paul's Bridge, all the way down into Central Ave in Milton and out along Pope John Paul Park, and now hopefully into the future, all the way up to Castle Island. So congratulations and continued good luck with it, and keep up the great work.
Thank you. No, it's absolutely just massive team effort here. So yeah, definitely. So here I have the Victory Road Alternative 1 up again. I'm not sure.
There's a follow-up question.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. So at the Victory Freeport intersection, the first question is, could the slip lane be removed?
Great question. We have asked that question too. When we were discussing with the city of Boston, because this Mass DOT's jurisdiction covers most of our improvements to Victory Road, except for this section over here. And we wanted to ask the same question of the city: can we eliminate this slip lane? And I think everybody agrees that that would be the best thing to do. However, we know that there are large vehicles who use this road and need to make that right turn. And even if we eliminate the slip lane, we're going to have a massive turning radius over here. So you're not gaining too much by doing that. Again, that's just, conversations we've had, some analysis we've done. The city of Boston has jurisdiction here. If they were to make that determination and eliminate that, that would be wonderful, but it's not something that we can do with this project.
The second question with this is, could a mountable curb be provided to accommodate those vehicles? He goes on to say the condition exists now without a stop sign, so I don't imagine use will change or that people will stop, but I guess these are new stop signs.
These are proposed new stop signs for this intersection. I couldn't speak to that question at all. I'm not a traffic engineer and would give you the wrong answer. So I'm gonna rather not answer the question.
Great.
This is, is there someone at the city we should reach out to answer that question then?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you reach out to BTD, they would be able to, I would start, I'm not sure who the best person is, but if I was going to reach out to somebody, I would start with Charlotte Fleetwood, just because I know her. But that would definitely be a city question.
Thanks, because as I said, I've seen other places where they just use a mountable curb to accommodate that radius, but there's no stop sign now, so I don't know why people will stop.
Yeah.
Thanks, Evan. Ben asks, and if you don't know, that's totally fine, what the plans are for improvements along Morrissey Boulevard, north of the trail and the drawbridge.
Yeah, I don't have the answer to that either. I know that, the whole Morrissey Boulevard redesign project is a whole other discussion, so I can't answer that question.
Great. I'm going to invite Vivian Lee to add a comment.
Hi, I just wanted to follow up what Jack Murray was saying. This has been a long time in coming. While some of us may have some concerns about specific design elements, I think the fact that something is finally going to be done here is key, and particularly the relationship with National Grid. Having been on the Boston Conservation Commission for many years, it has been an ongoing concern. And I think the fact that you've been able to negotiate an arrangement where we potentially will be able to access that is a long time in coming. The late John Lewis, who was the Sierra Club's representative on the Conservation Commission, used to remind us on a regular basis that the area around the tanks and such was at one point accessible to the public and was in fact one of the first parks along the waterfront, sort of park or open space, not park, but open space. And so to hear you talk about the fact that there is the potential of opening up that area, I think is extremely encouraging. And I just want to say that, speaking personally, I think this is a good effort to finally return some of this area to the public. And while, I agree with a lot of the comments made to strengthen some of the design elements, I also understand that, you have cost constraints. We hear a lot about the infrastructure bill and, the president went to New Hampshire yesterday to sign it. This has been, I gather this project has been in the works so long that you don't want to restart the design process to take advantage of additional funds. Is that the reason why you're you're talking about construction next summer, which means that frankly, you're into final design pretty soon. Is that why we're not talking about some of these other improvements? And or could they be part of a phase 2 of this project as the state thinks about how it uses the infrastructure bill? Thanks so much.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand your question with regards to some of the other, are you referring to a different alternative route? Or is that what you were referring to when you asked some of the other design considerations? Or
I think there were questions about why is it on one side versus the other. We said that could be part of phase 2 and such. So I was just trying to understand whether this project or quote phase 2, whatever you want to call it, could be in the queue for future infrastructure dollars. I understand that with construction starting next year, you're basically at you said whatever, 25% design, you're going to be at 100% design pretty soon. So if you're going to
Yes.
start construction next year. So the question
Yes.
I think is this project possible or likely to be in the queue for some of the new infrastructure funding so that some of the issues brought up today could be wrapped into phase 2? I'm sorry, I wasn't clear.
No,
Thank you.
that's okay. I just wanted to make sure I respond correctly. So right now for this particular project, we are at 100, but we will be at 100% design on Friday. We are, already have our funding committed for, if we go out to bid in June. There's no reason why this project would preclude future design. I have no idea what the timeline for future design for a phase 2 would be at this point. I don't have it currently in a capital planning outlook that we would be doing future design right now. Again, I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying it's not on my plan for the next year.
And I will note, Vivian, I believe that the floodgate that Stella described is in the infrastructure bill. I think that's something that, or in the proposal that the state's legislature is looking at.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Paul Nutting asks if there is more detail showing the transition from the boardwalk to Morrissey. And Paul, I don't know if you have anything to add to that question.
No, I just want to know, because it seems like, the design or what you see now would be like a really hard turn, a 45-degree turn. And I'm wondering if there's going to be like a bump out or something like that to make it a little bit more easy for people who are on a bike to make that turn, especially if you're going northward onto Morrissey.
Great question. And unfortunately, I do not have a brilliant graphic to show it, but we are definitely accommodating that. And what we're doing is the reason why we shifted our design of our structure. We recently shifted the design of the structure a little bit because it was coming in a much harder turn and then eliminating some of the existing sidewalk. So we changed our alignment slightly so that we could have an easier transition, and we're making improvements to that sidewalk, adding guardrail so that you don't get this idea that you might accidentally go into the roadway. So we've added a guardrails, try to soften that transition a little bit and make it safer. And what we added in this area is an additional little pull-off area for users. So we have the main overlook, and then we have another smaller overlook where you could pull off and wait. And hopefully that answers your question.
I think it does. If not, Paul, feel free to jump back in.
No, as a matter of fact, you did answer my question, Stella, and I did notice that the alignment of the boardwalk seemed to parallel the ramp, the 93 off ramp, more than it did before. It was coming in at a right angle with the original design. Yeah, see, this is all new to me. Before, it seemed as if it was going to go sort of, I don't know, straight across the water towards the gas tank property, as opposed to this parallel alignment, which I think definitely makes the transition to Morrissey a lot smoother.
Great, thanks,
That's great.
Paul. Mike Manning asks, can you speak regarding the boardwalk specifically? What is the width? Most of the harbor walk present and proposed is 12 feet, and I think this is 12 to 10, depending on how you measure width. But I'll let you talk more about it, Stella.
Yes, so we have, our structure is 12 foot wide, but a 10-foot free, so it's 10 foot clear. And so from the outside edges, the platform or the structure is 12 feet wide. We had analyzed different scenarios of making it 14 feet wide with 12 foot clear. This was kind of the sweet spot in terms of structural load and foundations and impacts to the salt marsh area below. So this was the best scenario that we could come up with in terms of those other impacts.
Great. I'm having a side conversation with someone who's directly chatting me, and I'll just clarify that one thing is that this Greenway was envisioned based on being along the Neponset, and obviously this goes further north. And essentially it becomes the Harbor Walk. Some of the discussions about what it will mean to be Harbor Walk will likely come up in the Chapter 91 process, but as Stella noted, the application for that process has been submitted. Everything is into Mass DEP, but there hasn't been the public notice, public hearing phase of that process. So for those of you, Mike or otherwise, who are interested in Harbor Walk issues vis-a-vis this project and Chapter 91 steps, that's still to come. And similar to that, Charlotte asks, could you share a bit more about the approach to signage and wayfinding and how it is being developed?
Yes. DCR has developed a wayfinding guide for our trails and greenways. We are implementing some of that right now in the next, well, we're hoping to get that in the ground really soon, but for the rest of the Neponset River Greenway. But we are looking at our greenways and our trails with a comprehensive approach to wayfinding. We're going to have directional signs, informational signs, trying to have signage that tells you how far you need to go to your next destination. I mean, I don't know. I didn't bring any graphics with me to share at this time. I'm just sure if I've answered the question sufficiently. Please let me know if you'd like more information.
Chris Mancini asks, what are the current plans or thoughts about the improvements to Victory Road Park that you mentioned? Can you tell us more?
Yes. So at this time, we are proposing some improvements to Victory Road Park, mainly for the entrance, to provide an accessible entrance to the parks. Right now, it's not user-friendly to walk or ride your bike to the park. You have to drive there. We are also proposing to regrade the gravel parking area. So, right now it's the surface is quite muddy. So we're planning on regrading it, adding more gravel, adding an accessible pedestrian connection into the park. I know that our structural engineer has reviewed this pedestrian bridge and noted that it is in still good condition. So our proposal really just improves the entrance, the parking, and gets you into the park via an accessible sidewalk.
Great. And Sarah asks, how does the boardwalk perform in wet conditions, given environmental concerns of materials used on harbor walks? They can sometimes be slippery in rain or snow.
Yeah, our proposed boardwalk structure, the surface is a hardwood lumber, and I'm pretty sure that in extreme wet conditions it would be slippery, but I'm not certain that it's more slippery than any other boardwalk structures.
All right, and Andres has a question regarding the boardwalk design. Andres, do you want to chat?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Stella, for all you've done so far. This is really exciting and awesome. I was just curious if the boardwalk has passed through the Boston Conservation Commission or DEP or whoever has to sign off on it or permit it as is in your design, or if they asked you to make any changes to it or anything like that.
We are fully permitted from the Boston Conservation Commission, and with regards to our MIPA review, we have our MIPA certificate for the structure.
Awesome, thank you.
All right. I am incredibly grateful. If anyone else has questions, we're happy to answer them, but I'm thrilled that so many of you were able to join us today and that so many of you asked questions. It feels like a really good conversation. I'm really grateful for Stella to coming. Oh, Lee adds in the chat, we at the Neponset River Greenway Council thank DCR and MassDOT for your efforts to design and build this. We're eager to see this moving forward, as well as the future Morrissey Boulevard project, the Edgewater Trail, and the southern connection beyond Paul's Bridge to the future Blue Hill Avenue shared use path to Canton and Stoughton. Thanks also to Boston Harbor Now for bringing visibility to public access along the harbor. If anyone's interested in participating in the Neponset River Greenway Council, they meet the first Wednesday of each month to maintain and move the trail forward. Rose says, great project and thank you. Stella, again, thank you so much for coming. People have left great notes in the chat. If you have any final thoughts.
I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity for me to present this project. I always love talking about it. It is really a wonderful project. And I have to say thank you so much to this organization. Thank you to the community. I mean, the community has really driven a lot of this work and, you know, it's so valuable. Thank you.
And Amanda, is there anything you wanted to add at the end?
No, it was very informative. And if there's anything that I can help on the city side, just feel free to reach out to me.
Great, thank you. With that, we will wish everyone a great rest of your day. Thank you all.